This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month.
Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks Daily Fantasy Sports app today and use code Spotify and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code Spotify on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all, and neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, we are less than 1 week away from Halloween. There are many haunted places in America, but New Orleans is said to be one of the top. And there is one building that is known as the most haunted place in Louisiana. So I'm going to tell you all about the crimes that occurred there, the woman responsible for them, and the horrible legacy she leaves behind. This is the case of Delphine LaLaurie. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories, and he reacts to them.
What's up, folks? It's me, Russ, a.k.a. The Mold, a.k.a. Vote for Us, a.k.a. The Profiler,
Okay.
a.k.a. General So.
General. It is true. You eat General So a lot.
Man, I've been eating too much General So's, but it's because we got the good one. They give the crispy General So's. Nothing worse than when they give you the soggy General So's and it's all fat.
Yes.
Oh, so fun story.
Uh-huh.
When I first went to Jess's house, she ordered me Chinese food.
I did, yeah.
It was the worst Chinese food I ever had in my life.
Why is that big of a deal?
Because you got to know the good Chinese spots where you live. It got to look like the dirtiest Chinese food place. That's the one you always go to with the faded signs of the pictures of the food.
That's the best ones.
Yeah, it has to look dirty.
Okay.
If you go to a clean Chinese food,
you're going to be disappointed.
it's probably like white people cooking Chinese food. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah, you are General So's chicken in the flesh right here. Well, hey, everyone. I'm Jess, and we're back for another week. How exciting.
Can't believe I went on a tangent already.
I think our listeners expect it at this point. I love how you did all the hashtags that we have. I was listening to old episodes this week. I just decided, let me go back and listen to these old episodes. It was kind of funny, kind of cringy, for us, because for us, it's hard to listen to yourself talk, And
because Jess doesn't even listen to me in the house.
Yeah, I don't. So I was listening to these old episodes, and we have so many inside jokes now after 3 years. But they're inside jokes with thousands and thousands of people. We all have these inside jokes together.
Yeah, the more you listen, the more you'll understand. So if you're brand new, sometimes we'll say something
that the OGs will get, but other people won't get if you're brand new.
But you know what? Something today might turn into an inside joke and we just make it up and keep running with it. Like,
it's true.
You know, like sometimes I make up words, but I don't mean it. Like I said, eye lobe. But you know what I mean. It's like the lobe of your eye.
You're an idiot. All right. Well, we're back for another week. Russ and I, over the last weekend, went with his sister and her boyfriend to this. It's like a haunted house, but like an adult haunted house because it comes with 5 cocktails. It's actually really cool. It's called House of Spirits, and I think it's like all over the country. There's one in Houston, one in LA.
They didn't pay us for this, by the way.
One in New York. No, this isn't. But we went to this haunted event, and it was pretty cool. You get these cocktails. Each room has a different cocktail, and you have to talk to all these actors who are playing dead people, and you have to try to piece together the story of what happened in that mansion. So that was really fun.
Yeah, and they even had boobs in there.
They did. They did have boobs. Yeah. There was a burlesque dancer. But it was really fun to like, you know, piece together the story. But after 5 cocktails, I have no idea what the story was. I have no idea what happened in that mansion. And the next day, I could barely remember anything after the haunted house because now that I'm over the age of 30, my hangovers are on another level and I've begun blacking out when I drink where I don't remember what happened. That never happened to me before. Is this something that happens to people like when they get older?
Yeah,
that you like
maybe.
forget stuff that happened the night before and your hangovers, you feel like your soul has left your body and then you can't recover for like 2 days, like you have the flu.
There's a lot of times where Jess is hungover.
Shut up, Russ. Stop blowing up my spot.
And then the next day, she's like, I'm not hungover. She's like, I just don't really feel. I think I have to go like to the doctor. Something's really wrong with me. This ain't a hangover. It's happened a bunch of times. What is those like store hospitals called?
Urgent care.
He's like, I'm gonna have to go to urgent care. No, I think this is the flu. And I'm dying. She's like not feeling good, and I'm all right because like I don't know. I don't get hungover because being hungover is stupid.
Whatever. Well, I'm realizing that as I get older, the hangovers are getting so much worse, and I feel like people in our age group in the late 30s, early 40s. They can relate.
It's an amalgamation.
What happens at like 35 and up? It's so annoying. But the haunted house was fun. It was a good time, and it got me really into the haunted Halloween spooky mood. And yeah, I was super.
You know what I hate?
We had a great time. What?
When people try to make me dress up for Halloween.
I've been trying to make you dress up for Halloween for 12 years, and you won't do it.
You know what I am every Halloween?
What?
Handsome.
You said you would dress up with me this Halloween. We'll see if it happens.
No, I'm not doing like last minute runarounds to like Party City and shit.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Well, on the Patreon this month, we covered a spooky documentary as well called Cropsy. And the Patreon, it's, you know, we got tons of bonus episodes. We do a monthly True Crime and Chill. So this month's True Crime and Chill was on the documentary Cropsy. It's really good. It's about, you know, Willowbrook State Hospital and how it's abandoned, but how there's like murders that happened. It's pretty crazy. And when you join the Patreon, you also get a shout out by Russ, who reads a list of names of the new patrons and does his absolute best at sounding them out.
That's my cue.
Yep.
All right, so this week's Patreons are Dolores, Fatima, Satali, I think I did that right, Alicia, Elizabeth, Marissa, Ashley, Jacqueline, Meredith, Courtney, Katie, Michaela, Carmen, Michelle, another Carmen, Courtney, and Trisha. So cheers to you guys. I have a beer in my hand already.
Cheers.
I only have bottled beer today.
Cheers.
I don't have cans or I would open one. And every week, I do a review of the week.
You've been going strong over a year.
Yeah, there was one week where I forgot and I just pulled one up while we were sitting here.
Yeah, but you've been going strong for literally over a year because I was listening to these old episodes.
But I forgot in between, I think.
I don't think so.
Well, now you remind me.
Now I remind you, yeah. Every week.
You remind me of a lot of things over and over and over. And fun fact, I think the first time we hung out, Jess, I quote,
What
said,
are you going to say?
I don't nag.
I don't.
But I think what she didn't realize, she didn't realize what nagging is. Nagging is asking for the same thing over and over and over again.
Whatever.
So she didn't know what nagging was. Maybe she thought it was like the sound of her voice. Like if you just sound naggy, like if you whine. But like if you ask me if I'm going to do this 37 times, you just nagged me.
All right. Well, are you going to read the review of the week number 38 times?
I think I'm going to break the streak this week.
No, do it. Come on.
All right. So go to Apple, leave us a review because that's where we could see them.
Mm-hmm.
The other, like Spotify, don't do it, but still give us 5 stars and grab everyone else's phone in your family. So if you have 4 kids, grab their phones and give us 5 stars too.
Yes.
So this week's review is from Munchkin Princess 69. It's best podcast. Best podcast. Love hearing Jess tell Rusty stories. Especially love hearing Russ use words like amalgamation and made up words like eye lobes. This is the best funny and chill podcast. P.S. As the rightful heir to the throne of the chicken parm king, nobody will touch that crown. So I know who this is then. This is the chicken parm king's son.
And his screen name is Munchkin Princess 69. Chris, what are you doing?
You know what it is.
What?
So we found out recently that his girlfriend calls him Munchkin.
No, you can't blow him up like that on here.
Oh, if I could think of worse things to say, I would, and I would tell everyone. I'd make
Chris.
a t-shirt.
Oh, God.
Oh, and then he calls her princess. That's how we found out. He sent us in the group text. We have a group text like, hey, you want to play some Call of Duty or something? Mm-hmm. And he sent something like, love you, princess. And we were like, what? Wrong group.
That was the wrong group to send that to. Oh, my God. You guys are the worst with roasting.
And then we were like, yo, what does she call you, man? We got to know. If you call her princess and it's this cheesy, what did she call you, pumpkin or something?
And he said, he told you?
After a while, he's like, nah, I would tell you guys, but you guys aren't going to call me Big Daddy. And we were like, no fucking way. And then he was like, it's Munchkin.
Oh, my God. Chris, terrible idea to tell that group that.
So now his name is Munchkin Princess on here. So that means his girl probably took his phone and like, we have a joint account on his phone now. God. And never have a joint social media account because all everyone does is say, I wonder which one cheated.
That is true. When you have a joint social media, it's like red flag.
Yeah,
someone
who cheated?
Yeah, 100%. So when it comes to hauntings, everyone knows who listens to our show that you don't believe, right?
We just watched 28 Days Haunted on Netflix. It's very funny.
And Russ was making fun of it the entire time.
It was literally funny.
Well, it's unfortunate for you that you don't believe because I've been begging friendly spirits to haunt you for years at this point.
Bro, pull up.
Maybe one day they'll come through for me and prove to you what I've been telling you for 12 years.
Unless you float through this house. I don't believe it.
Ghosts really do exist.
How do you know?
Because it's spooky season. And I'm obsessed with American Horror Story. I'm obsessed. I wait for it to come every year. I'm always excited when the new season comes out. I decided to rewatch my favorite season. I love many of American Horror Story seasons, but season 3 Coven is my absolute top with season 2 Asylum in a very close second.
Is Coven the witch one?
Yes. I love witches, witch history, witch movies, witch books, witch documentaries. Shout out to our witch listeners. Love you guys too. I just love witches, and I loved that season of American Horror Story.
I work with this lady that said she was a witch, Anne.
Yeah.
I never seen her fly or use a broom.
Well, modern day witches do not use brooms or fly.
How do they get around?
I'm not going into that.
Do you think they're going to make their brooms electric to be like, like what is that called? Carbon neutral?
Maybe. Maybe they will. So in season 3 Coven, it follows a coven in New Orleans. And one of the characters that we meet in this story is a woman named Delphine LaLaurie, played by the absolutely amazing Kathy Bates. I love her so much. She's so phenomenal, and she always plays the crazy characters really, really well. Mm-hmm. So watching this over the last week made me fall down this rabbit hole of voodoo, witch history, New Orleans history, and the dark, disturbing history of slavery in our country. I decided to research Delphine LaLaurie because when I watched this the first time, I didn't really look beyond like what the show showed about her. And it turns out she actually was just as evil as American Horror Story portrayed her to be. So there are a few cities in America that have been reported to be extremely haunted cities. And New Orleans is one of the top. There are a few reasons for this. Some relate it to the multiple plantations that once called New Orleans home and the atrocities of slavery in America and our dark, shameful history. Others said that it's the prominence of the religion voodoo being part of Louisiana's culture. But I did like an obsessive amount of research this week on New Orleans and voodoo and witchcraft. And I think because of how misunderstood voodoo is as a religion, it's kind of easy to blame it on that.
Isn't it like Haitian voodoo?
Yeah, so it actually comes from Benin, which is a country in West Africa, and now it's in Haiti. But there are millions of voodoo practitioners all over the world. It's actually a pretty large religion.
The only voodoo I know in New Orleans is
You say New Orleans?
Yeah, like
It's
the New Orleans.
Orleans.
Okay. So the only ones I know about that place are the only magic that I know about is if you throw beads at women, they show you your boobs.
You're an idiot. During Mardi Gras, yes.
That's crazy. What kind of magic is that?
Oh, God.
Ain't that good?
Let's see if we can get through this story.
That's good magic.
So there's a specific place in the French Quarter that is reported to be the most haunted building in New Orleans. It's the most haunted building in the top 5 most haunted city in America. So it's pretty damn haunted. Okay. This is the LaLaurie Mansion, where Delphine LaLaurie, called her home.
What's her last name? LaLaurie?
LaLaurie.
LaLaurie.
For close to 200 years, 1140 Royal Street has had multiple owners, all of which have reported some type of paranormal activity in the building or...
Floating?
Yeah, some different types of paranormal activity.
I want to know specific
we'll talk through
ones.
It. I will tell you later.
Like not noises. Like everyone has air in their pipes sometimes and noises in the walls. That could be a rat.
I'm going to tell you later in the story
You have
what
a rat.
people have experienced. Okay?
R.I.P. Big Ange.
Everyone has experienced some type of either paranormal activity in the building or a misfortune that entered their lives after buying the property, as if this property is just damned. It has been many things over the last 2 centuries. It's been a bar, multiple storefronts, 2 different schools, low-income housing, and private residences multiple times. But although this building has had many identities over the last 200 years, it can't seem to escape the horror of its first identity, the home of Madame Delphine LaLaurie.
LaLaurie.
The first American female serial killer and torturer, an actual scum of the earth and queen of the pieces of shits. That's what I'm calling her. So I'm going to tell you all about this scumbag of a broad.
You called her a broad. What is she from, New York?
And all her despicable crimes.
Look at this broad over here.
And the dark, disgusting legacy that lives on because of her. Are you ready?
Yep.
So, just to preface, there are a lot...
I thought it was preface.
No, you did not.
I did.
You need to read more, bro. Just to preface, there are a lot of embellishments to the LaLaurie story to make it sound like way more gruesome and fucked up than it already is. I can assure you, it's already incredibly horrible. The true story of Delphine was evil enough without all the rumors and embellishments.
Wow.
So I'm going to tell you as accurate of an account as I could research, okay, without all the extra shit.
Does it seem like American Horror Story was close?
American Horror Story was actually very close. But there have been lots of rumors over the years that made it sound even worse than that. So, here we go. On April 10th, 1834. So I need you to put on your black and white TV brain.
You know what's funny? You used to make fun of me for this stuff, but you really like came on to my side.
You know what's funny? You used to sit here with hardly no comments to offer, and now you really flourished into the personality and the star of the show.
Did you just tell me to shut up?
So I think that we have gotten into a groove.
I think you just told me to shut up.
On April 10th, 1834, a fire broke out on 1140 Royal Street, the home of Delphine and Louis LaLaurie.
You got to say it. Every time there's a fire.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, it's a fire.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
The police and fire brigade showed up to help control and extinguish it. While the fire was raging and destroying part of the home, the sheriff and the judge went up to Delphine and Louis. They said, you got to open up the servants' quarters and allow the slaves to get out because the building is about to burn down. We got to get them out of there before that part of the building burns. And Louis said, mind your business.
Oof.
And with that, the men went to the top floor themselves and busted down the attic door. It took a lot of effort because the door was extremely thick and had multiple locks on it.
Wasn't one of these Home Depot cardboard doors.
No. When they finally got the door open, they were met with an unspeakable sight. In the attic were 7 people who were slaves of the LaLauries. So severely tortured, they were almost unrecognizable as human beings. A few were shackled by the hands and their feet, stretched out almost where their limbs were like pulling apart from their bodies.
Wow, another like torture devices.
Yes. Another man was covered in open wounds and scars, and part of his scalp was pulled back, and worms were crawling in his wounds. There were a couple people inside of cages with spiked collars around them on their necks so that if they fell asleep, their heads would fall onto the spikes.
Wow.
I mean, it is just unthinkable, disgusting torture. These poor people were given just enough food to stay alive and live through the torture that Delphine was putting them through. The men who discovered this horrific sight were like completely horrified and shocked, okay? And word spread through the town almost as fast as the fire spread through the LaLaurie mansion.
Why was she doing this? Was there like just because she can?
Well, yes.
You're going to tell me.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. Within an hour, 2,000 townspeople came to the street because they wanted to see the victims with their own eyes. They couldn't believe it. This
Word
family
spread fast without even social media.
Exactly.
They didn't even have telephones back then.
Well, this family was such a high society, prominent family. They just couldn't even believe that they would be doing these horrific things. So who was this Delphine LaLaurie? Where did she come from? And what could possibly drive her to do these horrible crimes? Marie Delphine McCarty was born March 19th, 1787. She was born into like this really wealthy, politically powerful family called the McCarty clan. They were called the McCarty clan.
White hoods, huh?
So her family fled Ireland to France, and then they left France and settled in Louisiana during the French colonization of Louisiana. So the McCarty clan was like, they were the first on the scene in New Orleans. They had tons of money. They owned a bunch of real estate. They kind of just started buying all this shit up. Real estate, plantations, many businesses, and many, many slaves. So Homegirl grew up rich.
What year was this again?
1787.
Wow.
Homegirl grew up rich. She wanted for nothing. She was a spoiled little brat, pretty much. You know, obviously the customs back then were seriously way more messed up compared to today's standards. You know, they literally stole people from their native lands, owned and bought and sold them. They slaughtered Native Americans, and they married off little girls who were incredibly young. By 12 years old, most girls had gotten their periods and were now preparing to be wives. 12 years old. Delphine was only 14 years old when her parents arranged her marriage to a high-ranking Spanish officer who was in his 30s.
Damn.
14. 30s. That's so gross. His name was... Okay, just let you know, there's going to be a lot of AKAs in this story because these names are really, really long. So his name was Don Ramon de Lopez y Anguilo, aka Ramon. We're just going to call him Ramon.
I saw something funny the other day that people were talking about. There was like a meme. I only know stuff from memes now.
Uh-huh.
And like they said this dude, this reminds me of this, that like his last name was so long that they just called him Wi-Fi because it was like a Wi-Fi password.
That's funny.
Reminds me of my last name, which I'm not telling none of you fuckers. There'll be someone, what's your last name?
Yep, there would be.
And then after that, someone like, what's your social security number? And then someone else, I'm calling you for a used car warranty. Like, get the fuck away from me.
So she, got married to Ramon, and then she got pregnant pretty much right away. And 4 months into their marriage, the two of them ended up traveling to Spain because that's where he was from, right? On the way, they made a stop in Cuba, and Ramon mysteriously died. There are a lot of differing accounts.
Not very mysterious, son.
Maybe not. See, there are a lot of differing accounts about the cause of his death, but because it was it was the 1800s at this point. I think it was 1800. Like, we don't really know exactly what happened.
Anyone could just disappear back then.
Yeah, but he did die. And she ended up continuing the voyage to Spain alone. The voyage from America to Spain was 5 months.
Damn. And that's on a ship, right?
Yeah, long time. On the way to Spain, she gave birth to her daughter on the ship. On the way there, she gave birth. Her first daughter's name was Marie Borgia Delphine Lopez y Angula de la Candelaria, a.k.a. Borquita. Borquita was her nickname. Seriously, that's her nickname. That's what Delphine called her. So she stayed in Spain for a hot minute before returning to New Orleans with her baby Borquita to live with her parents. 8 years later, Delphine, now 22 years old, married another dude named Jean Blanc. His name wasn't so hard.
And she chose this dude.
Yes, because now she's 22. He was also rich. And while married to him, her mother died. So she ended up inheriting one of the plantations, multiple slaves, and a bunch of money, taking her net worth to $5 million.
Wow, she's like a billionaire.
Her and Jean Blanc remained married until he died 8 years later in 1816.
You guys already know because we have been talking about them for a while now. Via Hemp is by far one of our favorite sponsors we've ever had, okay? We use their products all the time. Maybe you're a little like me. You're a little anxious. You have a hard time settling down. You're kind of wound up a lot. If that's you, Via Hemp products are for you. Check out their website. You will find something that speaks to you. Maybe you're like Russ. You have a hard time sleeping because you have bad nerve pain or chronic pain. Then Via Hemp is for you because their gummies will help you get some quality sleep. Maybe you're looking to have a really good time. Maybe you just really like edibles. You want to laugh. You want to get the munchies. You want to watch a movie and have a really strong belly laugh. Then Via Hemp products are for you, okay? They're literally for everybody. So head over to viahemp.com, promo code wifeofcrime1 to get 15% off your first order. That's VIIAHEMP.com, wifeofcrime1 for 15% off your first order. Last year, Save More Money was the most popular New Year's resolution in America. Clearly, a lot of us feel like our money is slipping through our fingers. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the best saver, and I don't know much about investing until I started saving and investing with Acorns. Turns out you don't have to be an expert at all because Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. And I always thought that when people say, ooh, I invest in stocks, that they had a ton of money or something. Well, you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can literally start with $5. And you know you guys are spending that at Starbucks on these fancy lattes. So skip the coffee and invest with Acorns. You don't even need a ton of time. Like, you can just sign up and start investing within 5 minutes. Head over to acorns.com/wifeofcrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. That's acorns.com/wifeofcrime.
So by the time he died, she had birthed 4 of his children. So now she's a single mother of 5. But, you know, she's got a lot of money. She's
when
rich.
you're super rich, probably a lot easier
She's got
to be a single parent.
she's got nursemaids and nannies and all kinds of help.
I'd have a lot of kids if I could just have someone taking care of them.
That would be me.
Well, you could be my nanny.
Ew, shut up, Russ. So Delphine married her 3rd and final husband in 1825. Now, this was scandalous, okay? His name was Leonard.
Tell me the tea.
I'm going to tell you the tea right now. His name was Leonard Louis Nicholas LaLaurie, a.k.a. Louis. And this marriage was very scandalous because Delphine was a mother of 5 in her 40s, and Louis was only 25 years old.
Yeah, but you know what? If I'm 25 years old and there's an older woman that's a billionaire,
yes,
I'm in.
But this was back in the 1800s.
So
they don't do that back then.
Yeah, and it's back in the 1800s, and she's in her 40s, so you know she was washed. Because when I was a kid, people in their 40s was washed.
Yeah.
Now, 40s, 50s, 60s.
We all look good.
People look good, but back in the day, they used to let themselves go.
They did, yeah. So she was in her 40s. He was 25 years old. And, you know, back then, old men married these young girls, but older women didn't marry much younger men. So it was super scandalous. He was in his medical residency because he was training to be a doctor.
They had real doctors back then?
Yes, they had real doctors back then.
I thought it was just like someone that said they knew stuff about the body, but there's no like record keeping of a computer or something like to be able to say you're a doctor.
Yes.
Like I could just pull up to a house with my little duffel bag and a stethoscope and the knee knocker thing and say that I'm a doctor, and they'd be like, all right, and then
you probably could. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I mean, they had schools, they had residency programs, so I don't know what type of like proof people had back then.
Yeah, there's no board of direct. Like you could just say you are the board. You could say you're anyone because they can't pull up a picture of you.
That is true. Well, he was training to be a doctor, and the two of them only got married because Delphine got pregnant. So they were having sex out of wedlock, which is another thing that makes this super scandalous for back then. Their marriage was pretty miserable. A lot of drama, fighting, very tumultuous, okay? In 1831, Delphine purchased 1140 Royal Street and built a mansion on the lot. It was 2 stories with an attic, a service quarters, and it had a large courtyard in the back. The whole family moved in to the home along with 19 of her slaves, and this would become their primary residence.
19 slaves? You got like an army.
I mean, that's disgusting. Horrible.
I'm just thinking, that's just even a lot of people to be around.
Yeah, it's a lot. So despite their toxic marriage, the two would host these lavish, crazy parties a couple times a week. They were actually known for it.
A bunch of hello, darlings.
I guess. They were known for these parties, so to get an invite was like a huge deal. They were super rich and powerful, very high society. So their parties were full of tons of food and tons of booze. But behind the veil of luxury was a dark and sinister truth that some people started to catch on to and see. Delphine and Louis had 2 anonymous complaints filed about them because a few people had seen the state of their slaves during the parties. Their slaves were severely malnourished, disheveled, and incredibly dirty looking.
And they're rich as hell. So, like, if they're not giving them food,
yeah,
it's on purpose.
So these people
there's no lack of food.
Yeah, these people that would attend the party, 2 people anonymously complained to the authorities about it.
And I'm not saying you should have slaves and treat them right, because there'll be some idiot that tries to say that. Because there's always some idiot like, Russ saying that slaves are okay if you feed them.
Well, no one thinks that. Everyone knows that. I mean, no.
Now, you see some of the dumb messages we get on the internet?
That's true. So when investigators looked into this, however, Delphine denied any mistreatment of her slaves and said the claims were completely ludicrous, and she just would throw money at the problem.
Ludicrous, darling.
Because back then, there were a set of slave codes in America and other French and Spanish-owned colonies. You know, these codes were all over the country in the North and the South. The Code de Noir was the slave code brought to Louisiana from the Spanish. So slave codes, I didn't know this until I researched this, because shout out to all the history teachers who didn't teach us anything. Slave codes were essentially laws put into place about how to own slaves. It was like a manual, pretty much.
That's crazy. It's like...
about how to own people. How insane is that to even think that? It's just nuts.
How about you do your own stuff?
So restrictions were put on these people who were enslaved to perpetuate their mistreatment. And in these codes, there were also guidelines for slave owners. So there was like a whole rule book on how to own a slave. And one of the guidelines was...
Was there a slave enforcement bureau?
No, there was just investigators. So it's not like it was taken that seriously. So one of the rules in the codes in the book said, if you beat or mistreat your slaves, you may have to pay a fine. If you kill one of your slaves, you may be arrested.
Wow.
It was super vague. There were no real consequences, but being rich and powerful allowed a quick loophole around this, because you just throw money at the problem. Oh, you think I did that? Here you go. Here's some money. Let's just bury it.
I wonder if back then only rich people had slaves, or it'd be like, you know, a regular person had a slave, but they only had one.
No, plantation owners had slaves. There were also free people of color who owned slaves.
That's crazy. A black person or another black person.
Yeah, there was. And I don't think you had to be super rich to own slaves, but you did have to have enough money to buy them. And it's just all crazy. I just can't even believe it happened, honestly. I'm about to get real history nerd on you, and all my history buffs might appreciate this part, but I'm about to go into some history so that we get context about what's happening, okay?
Okay.
So when researching this case, I actually learned a lot about slavery at this time in Louisiana. So in 1803, there was the Louisiana Purchase. You've ever heard of that before?
I heard that word.
So the Louisiana Purchase is when France sold Louisiana to the U.S., to the United States. And France sold it to America for $15 million.
It's crazy that like some places can own a piece of land in another country, kind of like how we own Alaska. Like
yeah,
America has Alaska. Like, wait, that's not connected to us.
So that's exactly what happened here. So the French own Louisiana. Louisiana was huge. It wasn't just Louisiana as we know it now. It was 15 states all through the Midwest up to Canada. That's a huge territory. And in 1803, the Louisiana Purchase happened, and that's when France sold it to us. So the reason this happened, get this, the reason France sold Louisiana was because in Haiti from 1791 to 1804, there was the Haitian Slave Revolt. Have you heard of the Haitian Slave Revolt?
No, but I bet you're going to tell me.
It was fucking amazing. It was the largest and most successful slave rebellion in the Western Hemisphere. There were 1.5 million slaves in Haiti, 24,800 free people of color, some of which owned slaves, like I said, and 30,000 white people. So when you look at those numbers, right, the white people and even the free people of color who owned slaves were outnumbered by the 1.5 million slaves in Haiti at this time. The working conditions on the plantations in Haiti were absolutely atrocious. And by 1791, the slaves heard a rumor that France was giving free people of color more rights and freedom. And so this kind of like empowered them a little bit. They were like, oh, wait, freedom is possible. So a dude named Toussaint Louverture, who was a former slave, and now he's a general in the Spanish military, he took all the slaves in Haiti and molded them into a disciplined army. And they went to war against all the white people. And they rebelled and revolted and won the war and became free people in Haiti.
That's good, but then I wonder what do they do for money and work after they're free? That's some crazy transition.
It is a crazy transition.
But it's better to
How
be
amazing is
poor
it,
and free than to be
slaves. Absolutely. So France lost control of Haiti because of this. And then France just decreed that all the slaves in the French Caribbean are now free. And Napoleon, he originally was planning to expand the French colonization of North America by holding on to the Louisiana territory. But now he's like, no. This could happen again. Let me get the hell out of the Americas. Let's just stay over in France. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And the Louisiana territory, like I said, was 15 states. And he called Thomas Jefferson. Well, I'm sure he didn't call him. He probably wrote a letter or met with him or something.
That probably took a long time to get there.
He said to Thomas Jefferson, I'll sell you the territory for 15 mil. And Tom was like, bro, that's the deal of the century.
Put it on my tab.
I'll take it.
And that started the U.S. debt.
And so, no.
With compound interest, it's at trillions
That
today.
was a really good deal for all those states, 15 states. So America bought it. And after America gained control of Louisiana territory, people would remain enslaved for 62 more years until the abolishment of slavery officially in 1865. So I said all of that.
That's like 100 years ago. Like slaves were around like about 100 years.
Isn't that
like a
insane?
lifetime. Like, people's great-great-grandparents or something like that might have been around when they were slaves. Like, you think of it as like...
No, it wasn't that long ago.
It was so long ago.
So I said all of that to say that on top of the Code de Noir put in place by the Spanish, now America had all these slave codes established. And these slave codes were twofold, right? So there was like a decent amount of people who owned slaves and they agreed with upholding slavery. That's the whole reason we had our Civil War. But not everyone tolerated the outright abuse and mistreatment of slaves. Okay? And another thing I want to touch on is the role that white women played in the mistreatment of slaves. Turns out, white women who were plantation owners, women like Delphine, were actually especially abusive and evil to their slaves. A lot of history likes to portray white female plantation owners as like more sweet and loving towards their slaves more than their male counterparts. But this was actually not the trend back then and pretty much the opposite of the truth. There are numerous accounts of white female slave owners being much more brutal than men.
As a man and other men listening, we know women are pretty mean. We could have told you that.
Well, the psychology behind that has been debated for years, but what seems to be the consensus among historians is that these women were oppressed in their own way, being married off at such young ages, having no rights or control of their own lives. And it's as if they relished in the ability to have power over someone because they were powerless themselves. And this power would often go to their heads, and they would become incredibly cruel. Almost like they had something to prove, like a superiority complex. Fucking disgusting.
Fucking women, bro.
So when the...
You don't even like entertain it anymore.
I don't. So when the complaints started mounting about Delphine and how horrible her slaves looked and were being treated, multiple complaints led to all 19 of her slaves being taken away from her. She bought them back. One by one.
Wow. How would... Well, there's no real good records back then.
Not even that.
You could tear the paper up, and there's no records.
It doesn't matter. Slaves then were looked at as not human. They weren't looked at as people. They were property. And that is why all of this went on. Like, they weren't seen as people, which is absolutely just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So now we're back to the fire that broke out in the LaLaurie mansion on April 10th, 1834.
Holy crap, I forgot about that.
The fire brigade, judge, and cops busted down the attic door and discovered the torture chamber within. 2,000 townspeople heard of the atrocities and came to the house to see these poor 7 people for themselves. Rumors spread like wildfire, and within hours, all these townspeople, 2,000 of them made up of white people, free people of color, they all descended on the house, demanding that Louis and Delphine be arrested. The crowd watched as Delphine and her family jumped in their carriage and were being whisked away by their coachman, heading for her plantation. Before she got away, the crowd tried to capsize her carriage. They jumped on top of it and jumped on the horses, but she got away anyway.
Damn, they were really booking it.
This angered the crowd, which then turned into a vicious mob. They flooded the mansion and completely destroyed it, ripping the furniture apart, throwing things out the window onto the ground, ripping down pictures, burning stuff. They completely destroyed her mansion.
But that's how people should feel just for someone having slaves. Like, if you were a slave owner in there,
Yep.
like, you're not upholding the slave standards.
Yeah, this crowd was made up of 2,000 townspeople. I'm sure a ton of them owned slaves. Like, it's kind of nuts when you think about it.
Yeah, but you should be outraged that there's any slaves in general.
Well, over the course of the next few hours, they destroyed the mansion completely. The coachman that helped her escape, he came back to the home. Bad move, bro. Because when the crowd...
Bad move, bro.
It was a bad move on his part, because when the crowd saw him, they murdered him. And they killed the horses.
Why kill the horses?
I know. I don't know why they killed the horses. Poor horses. They had nothing to do with it.
Well, poor slaves, too. I'm over here, everybody.
Yeah.
Poor everyone. Except LaLaurie. Is that how you say her name?
LaLaurie.
LaLaurie.
So what no one ever discovered were the whereabouts of the other 12 slaves she owned. Some people believe they could have escaped during the frenzy, but historians say it's highly unlikely because of strict record keeping and laws about slavery, and how hard it must have been for 12 slaves to successfully escape Louisiana with nowhere to go. The overwhelming majority believe that Delphine murdered them and buried their bodies in the courtyard behind the home. They believe this based on firsthand accounts and neighbors, and the 7 tortured slaves that they found pretty much confirmed that she murdered them and buried them in shallow graves in the courtyard.
I mean, all they had to do was dig it up, but it's very feasible that she did do it because she wouldn't care about killing them.
Exactly. So after this fire, for months, rumors started swirling all over America. It actually reached all parts of America. She was known everywhere as Madame LaLaurie, the slave torturer. There were rumors of medical experiments that were done on these poor people, and the rumors became more and more gruesome as they spread. A lot of it was for shock value. As if the truth wasn't shocking enough. So I did look into a lot of these claims, but a lot of people think they were used to sell newspapers, like medical experiments. They said, that she was taking body parts off of one person and sewing them on another. That's all just kind of for shock value.
That's what they talk about, what the Nazis were doing with people.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened to Delphine? Well, her and her husband, Louis, gave power of attorney to her daughter's husbands for their estate in America. And the two of them boarded a ship to France and eventually settled in Paris.
Wow, they got away.
She lived out her life in Paris, just like the spoiled little evil brat that she is, never paying for the horrendous crimes committed by her in New Orleans. Her husband left her and moved to Havana, Cuba, where he lived the rest of his life as a recluse, completely alone until he died. And Delphine begged her daughters to let her move back to New Orleans, but they forbid it. They were like, yo, Mom, like, you can't come back here. Do you remember what happened here? So they wouldn't let her come back.
How'd they have this conversation? They weren't on the phone.
Through letters, and there's actual letters that you can read. Historians have them.
Did they write like Shakespeare back then?
No.
How art thou coming back?
No, they didn't write.
Thou shalt be forbidden.
They didn't write like that back then.
Oh.
So her children eventually all moved to Paris to be with her, and she ended up dying there on December 7th, 1849. The mansion at 1140 Royal Street sat dormant for years and
I'll buy
years.
I don't got that kind of cheddar.
No, you can't buy it.
We could
now.
all pitch in as
It's not dormant now.
the wife of crime.
It's not dormant now. Someone
True.
owns it. But it sat dormant.
Everything's for sale.
It sat dormant for years and years before being purchased by an investor in the late 1800s. And he restored the building, trying to bring it back to its former glory. Because despite what happened there, the building itself was actually quite beautiful.
All old buildings have such like old charm. It's just not like everything's like nowadays everything's just square and regular, but like there's a lot of detail and woodwork in old buildings, which is cool.
Yeah, so his goal was to try to bring that back, but he didn't hold on to it for long before selling it. When looking back at the timeline and the real estate records, no one held on to it for long. No one has owned the home for more than 5 years.
Still?
I'll
take it.
Since Delphine LaLaurie owned it. There are many reports over the years of sounds of female screaming coming from the top floor in the house where the attic would have been. Doors flying open randomly. Intense feelings of sadness and darkness. Things falling off of shelves. Even if you go on a ghost tour, so they have ghost tours in New Orleans, and one of the guides that was guiding the ghost tour, she felt pulling on her purse, and she turned around like someone tugged on it. No one was there. She started talking again, giving her spiel about the place. She started getting a pull on her shirt. She turned around, no one was there. Right in the middle of a ghost tour.
I call shenanigans.
I know you do, because you don't believe it. So maybe we'll have to go and visit.
Maybe the only reason I don't ever like see ghosts is because I don't have a purse, so they have nothing to pull on.
No, Russ, you're just lame.
No, there's no ghost.
Okay, Russ.
And you know what? I'll say this every time. You know what me and people that believe in ghosts have in common?
Wait, what you and people who believe in ghosts have in common?
Yeah.
What?
None of us have ever seen them.
That's not true. There are many people who have seen ghosts.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
Show me one. How come there's no pictures?
Because you can't necessarily take
It's 4K.
pictures of something that's see-through.
I got a 4K phone.
You're annoying,
Steve
Russ.
Jobs told
I get
me
you being skeptical.
the newest phone
but
has enough megapixels to see it.
I get you being skeptical, but like you can't even have a little bit of an open mind on the subject.
I want it to be true.
And you think people who have had experiences like your own wife, aka me, you call us crazy or kooks or dumb.
Crazy kooks.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Well, you're trying to trick me.
No one's trying to trick you. You just haven't experienced it for yourself. Have you been to space?
I don't know anyone that's
Have you been to space?
Yeah, me and Buzz Aldridge are really good friends.
Yeah,
so
you
I went there with
haven't.
him.
So how do you know what the Earth looks like and that space exists?
They have pictures of it.
Yeah, but could they have been doctored? Maybe the Earth is flat.
Like the guy that I work with that told me the Earth is flat. I'm like, if the Earth was flat, you dumbass, you don't think it would be the biggest tourist attraction ever? Everyone would be like, oh shit, look, there goes the end.
Yes, my point is there's tons of things you believe in that you've never seen.
No.
Yes.
Name one.
Is. I just did.
No,
space.
it's not. I could look up and see it.
You can look up and see space.
Not in New York because we have light pollution. But other places, you could look up and see it.
I'll think of
something. And if I have a telescope, I could buy a telescope.
I'll think of something.
No, you won't.
And I will find something that you believe in that you've never seen. I will. 100%. It'll happen.
Fake news.
There have been many reports of paranormal activity happening in this home. And it has been many things, like I said before. Apartments, schools, a bar, many businesses, and private residences. like Nicolas Cage, who owned it for a small period of time.
My boy.
Russ loves Nicolas Cage.
He has good movies.
Everyone thinks he's the worst actor that ever lived, except you.
You crazy?
You're his number one fan.
He has Face Off. He has Con Air. Please, you like what's the Treasure Hunter one with him?
I do. I love National Treasure.
That's the boring ass. The whole time I'm like, he ain't even doing nothing.
I love National Treasure.
He had Face Off with Face Off.
Well, he owned the LaLaurie mansion, but
I heard he buys a lot of dumb shit, so he goes broke.
Well, that's what happened. After he bought this property, he had to file bankruptcy and he lost it.
Yeah, but that's because he buys all the art. Like, you know what? If you're rich and making movies, why not live crazy like that? Why live safe and just have fun? You're only here once.
Well,
unless you believe in ghosts, then pick a crib you're going to chill in and open doors and scare people.
Well, it's interesting to me that over the course of 200 years, hundreds of people have come through this building at this point because it was apartments, it was so many things. And there have been an incredible amount of accounts of people who don't know each other, who span 200 years, who have had experiences, and some of them the same experiences, hearing female screams coming from the attic. And they don't even know each other, and they've heard these things. And
you know what it sounds like to me?
It's weird to me that would happen and that you still would completely think it's all fake.
I think there's a carbon monoxide leak in there.
You drive me nuts.
It's carbon monoxide poisoning.
So is 1140 Royal Street haunted by the spirits of the once tortured and murdered slaves that were forced to live there all that time ago? Or, in my dream ending, is the building possibly haunted by the madam herself, damned to her own version of hell for eternity, her soul perpetually forced to endure the same torture that she inflicted on those 7 innocent people and possibly numerous others over the years in that attic? I hope that's the case. That's the story of the LaLaurie mansion. And, you know, I went into a lot of history, but I really wanted to give the context of the time to really give you an overall view of what was happening then, why people were upset that she did this, and just all the different things. I found it really interesting that white women were actually so cruel to slaves. I never knew that until I researched this, that's actually a thing. There's been multiple books written on it. A lot of psychologists have studied, historians have studied why, these white slave owners that were females were so cruel. And it's really interesting. And I'm not at all saying that that's the reason she was like that, because she's just probably an evil person. I mean, she's probably just a terrible human being. But I could see that would be a motivating factor for her.
I think the moral of the story is, everyone, don't trust white women.
You're an idiot.
As I'm sitting across the table from a white woman that I should not trust.
Oh, shut up. Well, I found this so fascinating. I went down the rabbit hole. If you guys haven't watched it, you have to watch American Horror Story Coven, because the way Ryan Murphy addresses her character and the things that he puts Madame LaLaurie throughout the season.
Some of it's dark humor.
It's dark humor, but it's so vindicating. When you watch it, you're just yes, she's getting everything she deserved. And I feel like he kind of did a great job at giving her everything she deserved, and we would have all hoped she got in life as a punishment, because she was never actually punished. She got away with all of it. And she spent all her money and lived in a mansion in Paris and freaking lived the rest of her life unscathed, with no consequences, which is so angering to me that someone could just have no consequences for those terrible actions.
And everyone talks about karma. Sometimes there is no karma.
Yeah. That's crazy. She just died and nothing happened to her.
Was she old when she died? She lived a long life?
I mean, she was 60s.
That's old back then.
Yeah, she wasn't old. But anyway, Go watch it. Ryan Murphy does a great job at giving her what she deserves.
Yeah, and I have some advice for you. Make sure you go get yourself a cool Wife of Crime shirt.
Yeah, go get one of those.
A couple people saw Jess on the TikTok with it, and they were like, actually, Russ was right. That shirt is cool as fuck.
Yeah, the black and white wine and beer Wife of Crime shirt is good.
Or you could get it in a hoodie probably too, I think, right?
No hoodie. Sweatshirt.
Nah, screw you guys.
All right. Well, that's it.
All right, go follow us at Wife of Crime Pod on Instagram, Wife of Crime Pod on TikTok, Facebook, Wife of Crime, The Crime Family. And if you ran out of episodes to listen to us, go to Wife of Crime Patreon. If you don't know how to find that,
it's patreon.com/Wife of Crime.
Use Google and just type in Patreon Wife of Crime. Like, people are like, where is it? Like, what, you don't got Google, bro?
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful Halloween. Happy Halloween.
And give the kids the big candy bars. Don't be giving them mini ones.
Yeah, the little crappy candies. That was the worst.
You'll be a legend. If you do that, kids will talk about you and your house after you're long gone.
That's true.
If you give candy corn, I hope you have to suffer in your house for eternity.
Yeah, candy corn is the worst. I hated it as a kid. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Peace.